It seems to be, or rather it actually is, a bizarre notion trying to become enlightened for a lot of people that get on the spiritual track. They study Buddhism, Christianity, and then they come across the concept of enlightenment. They hear about it mainly because it's taught that Buddha, Satori, was an enlightened person, or became enlightened after sitting under the tree. And that's true. But many people become frustrated and confused over the course of time. And most people are actually tricked by gurus. And mainly because the gurus are not enlightened. There are lots of well-meaning gurus throughout the world that themselves assume that they are enlightened. And the reason they assume that is because they've been taught by, throughout their life, that enlightenment is similar to attaining a little bit more knowledge than what the average person has. And of course, many people teach that you're already enlightened. And none of this is true. But there's several issues involved with enlightenment. One being is, why do you want to become enlightened? Why is it? That's a question you have to ask yourself. What are you seeking after? Most people that are enlightened never sought after enlightenment. Now, I know it's said that Buddha sought after enlightenment, and that's why he sat under a tree, seeking something that he had been told over the decade of time after he went on the search. But the thing is, most people get it accidentally. And I can't say accidentally. Most people get it unexpectedly because they don't actually understand what it is. Nobody understands what it is. I can't say nobody, but what I mean is people that are not enlightened do not understand what it is. If a person thinks that they can read a book and become more knowledgeable about something, or sit in Sangha for years, listening to people, gurus, others, talk about spirituality, and they think that somehow, some way, they're going to cross over this bridge or transcend or something and become enlightened. It's like it's exactly like waking up in the morning. That's why gurus say wake up, and that's why Buddha said you had to wake up, and that's why Jesus said you have to wake up. But the problem there is, you've been on this path in this dispensation. Science says the universe, the Big Bang, whatever you want to call it, this kalpa of time that we're in stretches out for, possibly 15 billion years. And you started off, they say a one cell, like an amoeba, Well, of course, you didn't start off as an amoeba. It was much more rudimentary than that. But you've been on this path for billions and billions of years. And you've never been enlightened in that period of time, because no matter what it is you are at the particular time that you are it, that's what you think reality is. You think reality is this physical reality we live in, and you think you're a physical body, or if you're even more aware, you know that you're not a physical body, but nevertheless, you are somewhat trapped within this physical body and controlling it to a certain extent. So how do you wake up from that? How do you go from what it is you are existing in right now to transcending? Because see, enlightenment is a step beyond where you're already at. Let me stop right here and make something perfectly crystal clear. I'm not going to teach you something that you've ever heard before. I don't have a book in front of me. Well, actually I do. The Brahma Sutras I was kind of scanning through. But I don't refer to scriptures and stuff like that. And why don't I do that? Because for 50 years, that's what I did, just like you. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's a critical aspect of becoming enlightened. You really do have to attain knowledge and wisdom of spirituality that encompasses literally everything that the world has to offer before you could ever hope to become enlightened. But even at that, you can't, it isn't possible to transcend and become enlightened without help from the other side. So that's why people pray, for instance. They pray to God. They pray in the name of Jesus to God. They worship idols that they assume, like in Buddhism, they worship idols. They don't really worship idols, you know what I mean. But these idols represent particular gods, be it Krishna, this or that, or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that is utilizing your faith to ask for help for someone that is beyond where you're at now. But see, here's the thing. People die. There are ghosts, by the way. Everyone that dies is somewhat of a ghost at some point in time, and then they're reincarnated, etc., etc. But they've never transcended. Even if they're a ghost, they're not enlightened. They're just simply a ghost. I hope I'm not boring people, because I do ramble. But I follow the Spirit. But why do you seek after enlightenment? See, the thing is this reality exists for a specific purpose. And that specific purpose is to allow you to develop your essence into what it is. If you've ever listened to my other videos, you'll know that that's what I talk about a lot of times. And it's very important to develop that, because you don't know what your essence is. You don't know what you are. God doesn't know what you are. Well, to a certain extent, God knows now, because you've advanced to the point where you're actually a human being. And if you're watching this video, you're even more than that. You're a human being that is aware and is seeking answers for what the hell does all of this mean? And what's it about? Well, Lucifer is an enlightened individual. So enlightenment isn't the end-all be-all, because Lucifer is, even though he's enlightened, that doesn't mean that's a righteous thing to seek after. That's not becoming one with God eventually, because this kalpa of time, Lucifer exists in the same way you exist within it. When the kalpa of time is over, those that are one with God go on to the next kalpa in a different format. Whereas Lucifer does not, because Lucifer will never be one with God. And of course, those that choose to be one with Lucifer will not be one with God either. And when this kalpa of time is over, they revert back to the seed of the essence of what they are and start all over again. Nobody is squished out of existence. That's impossible. Everything is eternal. This is not eternal. The physical reality is not eternal. That's a dream creation by God. And then we interact with that dream creation by creating our own reality. I'm making a video. That's how I'm interacting with this dream reality that God has created. But make no mistake about it, God is not the one speaking to you right now. I'm listening as best I can to this God that created this reality, but God's never going to speak directly to anyone. If you don't like that, I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is, because there's some issues involved with direct communication from God that eliminates your freedom of choice, because then if you choose evil or whatever it is, and you were told not to choose evil or taught the right way, then that makes God an idiot, and that's impossible. And so God communicates via or vicariously through people that, like myself, that use inspiration and stuff like that, which is a medium that you go through that isn't crystal clear in many senses. You use faith. Everyone uses faith. That's what this particular reality is all about. Every choice you make is based upon faith. And you keep developing. So there are people that become enlightened that are not one with God, as I pointed out with Lucifer. Buddha was not one with God when he became enlightened. So, do you want to become enlightened toward becoming one with God, or you want to be enlightened just because you seek after further knowledge to give yourself more power and authority, or whatever it is that you are seeking? If your heart is dead set on love only, then you are similar to God. And then when you become enlightened, you use that to the best of your ability to help others become enlightened too. But the problem with that is if you become enlightened first, before you have this connection with God, being one with God, the problem with that is most people are so fascinated with the experience of enlightenment, and when I say most people, that assumes there's a whole lot of people on this planet, but I would be willing to say there are less than 100 enlightened people on this planet at this time that are alive. And most likely there are less than 10 people on the planet at this time that are enlightened. It's not an easy thing, and that's not the right word, because easy denotes the aspect of work or trying or whatever. So that's not the right thing to say. But enlightenment, it is an experience, but what it is that it's an experience that does away with experience. Now I'm getting into Zen. because Zen is essentially a format of communicating from an enlightened perspective. Zen is the only methodology that utilizes enlightenment to communicate to another human being. That's why it appears to be so confusing, because when an enlightened master, and actually I don't know of any enlightened masters that are alive today, but when they utilize Zen to communicate, it always seems contradictory or bizarre. But it isn't. It's absolutely straightforward, straight truth, no trickery involved whatsoever. It's absolutely straight truth. But the reason it appears to be bizarre and uncomprehensible and strange and everything is because you're not awake. And you're only utilizing this reality to make sense of an enlightened person that is the embodiment of Zen, and they're using a communication skill that incorporates enlightenment, trying to communicate to an unenlightened person. And so you're never going to understand an enlightened guru that uses Zen until you're enlightened. But it causes your mind and everything to, just kind of just things are breaking and everything, and it causes some sort of reaction within you to try to wake a person up. But yeah, getting back to the thing about enlightenment. So when a person becomes enlightened, that is the first time they've been enlightened in the billion plus years of their existence. And so according to Buddha, what he was saying is, well, the wheel of samsara is over at that particular time. Well, it isn't and it isn't. It is in the fact that this physical reality is no longer confusing to someone that's enlightened, because they understand it crystal clear what it really is and what it isn't. And what that does is cause the individual that has all the knowledge and wisdom jammed inside their awareness, their ego, their mind, their spirit, their soul, everything that is them, so to say, is reorganized after enlightenment, because everything means something else. But the main purpose of this reality right now for the unenlightened people, as well as the enlightened, but it's actually more applicable to the unenlightened, is that you are developing what you are. So every opportunity you have a choice to do good to someone or bad. Are you going to be loving or not loving? Are you going to be kind or not kind? Are you going to be generous or not generous? Are you going to defend someone that needs help against someone that is oppressing them? Or are you going to jump in the middle of it? This is where it becomes very confusing for people in this world, because you could be an employee of a corporation that is very harsh and very unfair and unkind and actually quite evil. Nazi Germany comes to mind. But most corporations today in the world, especially in the United States, well, I suspect throughout the world, are somewhat harsh. And some more than others. And you've got to find this line. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to understand if you're, contributing to the evil or going against the evil. Are you being kind in the world? That's the choice. Here's a concept of, take Hitler, for example. The guy never harmed anyone. But he is associated with the murder of millions of people. Why? Because he had the power and authority to order people to do things. And he had the charisma. So people carried out his orders. That's no different than Lucifer. People say, well, the devil made me do it. Well, did he or didn't he? You have a choice all the time. The devil can't make you do a damn thing. But if you're working in an occupation and you go, golly, I'm going to starve to death if I don't do this. Well, what's more important to you, starving to death or murdering someone because it's your job to murder someone? Let's say you're a cop. They have all kinds of authority. They could pull their gun out and kill someone or not. They got all this Black Lives Matter thing, you know. I mean, what's that all about? That's all about situations that arise all the time. And as a cop, you can choose to help a mentally ill or a person that's emotionally dysfunctional. Or you can use your force and your guns, choke the damn person to death or whatever. I myself am a retired firefighter, professional firefighter. And I had opportunities my whole life. And every opportunity I had, I used to help people. And that's the whole point and purpose of firefighters. And so I spent a 25 plus year career as that. But that's getting off the topic. So enlightenment. How do you become enlightened? You first listen to other gurus. There are lots of good ones out there in the world, lots of them. You probably don't want to listen to me if you want to become enlightened, because it isn't going to do you any good. You really have to have 20, 30 years of dedicated studying within a burning of love within your heart and soul. Not a burning to gain something like, wow, I want to become enlightened so I can do this or that. No. But a burning desire for love. Not caring what the consequences is. Think about Buddha. He didn't care. He sat under a tree and said, this is it. I'm not going another step. I will sit here until I die. Or I'm going to wake up. And of course he woke up. We don't know where Jesus woke up because there's not enough written about it. But apparently it was at a very early age. Possibly before he was born. So what does it take to become enlightened? It takes a lot of self-reflection. People say meditation, blah, blah, blah. There's a whole lot of things, but there's contradictory things. You really have to, I'd like to say study, but that's not right. Contemplate the contradictory things of Zen, the contradictory things of this reality. I mean, how does this reality exist? When I say how, I know how, but you have to get the answer. I can't just tell you. I've used the example before of a lemon in my hand. And the point and purpose of that was, and I ate it, and when I ate the lemon, it was like, whoa, you know what a lemon tastes like. It's very, whatever it is, it's very. But I could tell you what it is through the lens of a camera, and you can read about it till the cows come home, and you're never going to know what a lemon tastes like until you actually taste it. So enlightenment is the same way. You need to study about what it is. I can tell you what it is, but until you taste enlightenment, you're not going to be enlightened. Now, one thing about enlightenment, there's so many people teaching false stuff. In fact, almost everyone teaches false stuff about it. And the aspect about it is they act like you could become enlightened and then maybe it phases off. There's Satori, I think, is one of the words. Kensho. Anyways, these are a couple words that come to my mind where one is a slow coming up of enlightenment and the other one is a kind of an instant enlightenment type thing. But neither one of those are actually enlightenment. They're not enlightenment because when a person becomes enlightened, there's no going back. There's no misunderstanding that, wow, am I enlightened? Was that enlightenment? Am I enlightened now? That just never happens. Ever. Never. And one thing I'd like you to know, and this is kind of important, don't believe people that tell you they're enlightened. And the reason I say that is because there's so few that are enlightened. Not because possibly someone might say I'm enlightened, but you're never going to know the difference between the one that is and the thousands that aren't. You're never going to know it. Mainly because most of the thousands that say they're enlightened actually honestly believe they're enlightened. But they're not. So it's going to be very difficult. But you have to do it on your own. It's like the lemon, like I said. You have to do it on your own. But is it the end-all be-all? No. You're not going to, if you become enlightened, you're not going to be something that you're not already. It doesn't do anything to change you. Nothing. It does everything to change everything besides you. That's the interesting aspect. That's why people think and teach a lot about non-duality. They say that that's reflective of what reality really is, but it isn't. It's not at all. Anyone that teaches reality as non-duality is not enlightened, and they're never going to become enlightened if that's what they hold true in their mind. Because once a person becomes enlightened, they realize that duality is more reflective of reality. It was written down thousands of years ago in Hindu type writings about Advaita. And then it was misinterpreted by Adi Shankara or Adi Shankara into everything is one, which means you're God. That's not right. It's not true. That's the understanding of a person that has gotten to the point of understanding reality but never became enlightened. But is it worth it to continue on that path? Hell yeah. Why? Because it's awesome. It's just the epitome of awesome. There's people that ask questions on Quora, or whatever you want to, I don't know how to pronounce it. And that goes on and on and on. And people vote up or vote down. And people assume the people with the most votes, well, that must be true. It's not true. The reason they get the most votes is because that is the person that has the greatest knowledge of what the question was in this reality, and so they're given an answer based upon this reality, and everybody can relate to it, so they vote it up. But nobody can relate to enlightenment, therefore, it's not going to get an upvote. It's going to, at best, get a downvote. Or maybe rarely one person might vote it up because maybe they misunderstood. Do you really honestly think there's millions and billions of enlightened people? Are you that ignorant? Of course not. There was Krishna, a few in between there, and Buddha, possibly no one between Buddha and Jesus, between Jesus and right now. I don't even know. Maybe 100 people in that last 2,000 years? But you don't have to become enlightened. I mean, when this kalpa of time is over, whether you became enlightened or not is immaterial. It doesn't really matter. It only matters to you. It doesn't matter to God. So my suggestion is, if you cannot muster a feeling of love toward the creator of this reality, then you need to go back and study deeper and further. Because you're never going to get to where you think you're going. It's never going to happen. There's a guy on YouTube that teaches about Sanatana Dharma. He's got a lot of PhDs and stuff. Never met him, but he seems to be an incredibly well-rounded, spiritually understanding person. He's got a really good mind, able to retain what he's read about Sanatana Dharma. I don't think he's enlightened, but he sure knows a lot. He would be a person that you would want to study under, become a follower, because he's got a lot to offer, and he teaches about the love of God. So anyways, I'm going to cut this short. I wanted to mention that it's been months and months and months since I made a video. My life has been crazy, turned upside down. My wife finally retired early. This crazy COVID crap going on all over the world, and yeah, crazy. So I may not make videos as often as I used to, but I'll try to do it more often. I've just been so busy. I just haven't had a chance to get to this. And this is good coffee. It's called Jamaican Blue. If you like lattes, get into Jamaican Blue. Look at it. The problem with it is it's incredibly difficult to find. I have my own roasting machine and my own espresso machine, and I buy the beans green online. But even green, they're like $40 a pound, and that's if you can ever find it. But wow, if you like lattes without sugar, without any additives whatsoever, I've never found anything better than that. But see, that's like the lemon. I'm telling you something that you're never going to know. This latte here, Jamaican Blue, damn, that's a good latte. I mean, like most people that like lattes have never even tasted something like that. and you have to roast it just right. You have to grind the beans just right. And it takes experiment. I've been doing this, excuse me, sorry. I've been doing this for, I don't know, more than a decade now. And I'm always learning something new and how to do it a little better and stuff like that. So go out and try that if you can find it somewhere. It's not easy to find. And you'll understand what I'm talking about. But that's like enlightenment. Until you actually cross over, you're never going to know what it is. And so people that teach about it that are not enlightened don't know what they're teaching. They're only teaching the analytical aspect of something that they don't have. But I'm not denigrating that. That's a good thing. Because you need to become aware of all of these things before you cross that bridge, so to say. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day. Goodbye.